Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Los Angeles. We are in the finals. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas and Randy Buehler, a pair of Hall of Famers to bring you these finals. We find Daniel Scheid with Green Red Monsters. He's the second seed coming in. He's on the right-hand side of your screen against Denis Ulanov, who is in sixth seed on Mono Red, a deck didn't exactly expect to see here, but here it is in the finals. It's one of two copies that was in this top 8, and he's off to a good start here with Monastery Swiftspear.
You didn't expect to see Mono Red. I didn't expect to see Green Red Monsters.
Yeah.
Mono Red, I thought, oh, maybe there's this window in the metagame. Tom Ross won Louisiana States with it, maybe. Green Red Monsters, I think, the even bigger upset.
So Monastery Swiftspear gets in for 1. Elvish Mystic actually gets in for 1 as well.
Funny. Yeah, and this is the kind of hand Daniel wants. You know, Elvish Mystic into Sylvan Caryatid is a very good draw.
It's mono green so far? Oh no, it's got the Caryatid, never mind.
So this is a one-lander here for Denis. Basically, his biggest decision here is whether he just plays the Dragon Mantle and hopes to hit a second land. If he doesn't hit a second land, he doesn't even get to attack with Swiftspear for damage.
Well, he has Titan Strength.
Right, but if he plays the Dragon's Mantle first, to get an extra point of damage.
Yeah, for sure. So he has to make that decision.
Well,
right
he could
now.
attack.
He also can attack.
To Titan Strength.
He also can attack, in which case Daniel just can't block, or at least can't block without knowing that his Caryatid could die. And then post-combat play the Dragon Mantle, because he really wants to hit a second land drop. If he stays on one land, I think he's just going to be too constrained on mana.
Yeah, I think you attack first, just so that he can't block. Yeah. Now Dragon Mantles, and it says no mountain.
Being stuck on 1 is much worse than being on 4. Being on 2 is kind of where you want to be. And 2 and 3 mana is like the profitable zone for this deck. 1 mana is not really, going to be good enough. Of course, that seems like a very keepable hand, but still, it didn't quite get there on the draw. But if Denis hits this turn, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not like he's disrupted from getting to cast his 4 mana spells. His spells all just cost 1 mana.
Yeah, he's just limited to casting one of them until he draws the second land. I agree. That seems like you keep 1 land, Swiftspear, Dragon Mantle, 1 land on the draw. You totally keep that hand.
Yeah. And you see Denis pause on his upkeep, which indicates Titan Strength. He was thinking about whether he wants to scry on his upkeep. Decided his opponent has 3 lightning strikes or 4 lightning strikes in the deck, and it's just too risky.
He does find the mountain though, so off he goes.
And Daniel didn't play anything. He had 5 mana. He could have played Storm Breath, could have played Polukranos. He would have played any of these cards if he had them.
Does Daniel do anything in instant speed other than Lightning Strike?
Just Lightning Strike, but given that he didn't play anything, either his hands are, is all lands, cards that cost more than that, Lightning Strike and Crater's Claws. And it might even be that if he had Crater's Claws, he would have just burned the Swiftspear now.
All right, well, Swiftspear coming over.
Daniel has kind of a free block here. If Daniel blocks, Denis can't really afford to do too much here, though with the double Titan Strength, maybe he can actually play around Lightning Strike. So,
oh, Titan Strength.
You Lightning
Strike. If there's a
Lightning
Lightning Strike, you Titan Strength again as a response.
So this could lead to
here's
a blowout.
the Lightning Strike, and
does he have the second Lightning Strike? If he has the second Lightning Strike,
second Titan Strength.
Well, Denis has the second Titan Strength.
Oh God!
But if Daniel has the second Lightning Strike, then we're talking about a massive.
We're creating a stack here.
Does not look like it.
No, second Titan Strength. So the
gigantic Monastery Swiftspear, 9/5 Monastery Swiftspear, or 9/6 even. Jeez.
Yeah, the prowess triggers combined with the point of toughness off the Titan Strength is enough to make it 4 toughness before the Lightning Strike resolves, and then it goes to, like you say, just 9/6. Couple of scries. This isn't a catastrophe for Daniel. I mean, it may look like a blowout, but he traded 2 Titan Strengths for a Caryatid and a Lightning Strike.
Yeah, and it really depends on what else Daniel has in hand. Because if he needs that Caryatid, then this ends up worse. But there's a chance he doesn't actually need the Caryatid or care about it all that much.
I mean, he's been attacking with Mystic rather than tapping it for mana. He's got both his colors in basic lands.
Yeah, it's whether he has like a Storm Breath that maybe he couldn't cast, but if he had that, he would have cast it already.
Yeah, he would have cast
Same with Sarkhan, same with anything else.
All right, well.
Courser's looking pretty good here.
Courser's nice. He finds not perhaps the best card on top with Genesis Hydra.
Well, given that he's going to have 6 mana next turn, I would just keep the Genesis Hydra and just cast it for 6 or for 4. I mean, you're at enough life total, and a Genesis Hydra does a good job clogging the board. You can even get a little bit of peeking by seeing with Corsair if your top card's a hit. I actually think Denis is in not great shape here, despite that last turn working out kind of the way he wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he can cast, like, he can Lightning Strike the Elvish Mystic, he can attack with Swift Spear and it won't be blocked, but, you know, he's not actually doing that much damage right now. Swift Spear got blocked last turn and hit for 1 the first turn. It's not like he's got Daniel down to 10.
So what you're saying is that Corsair of Kruphix is good against mono red decks?
Oh, yeah. Gain an extra life and lets you go ahead and, you know, make your draw steps a little bit better.
It's 2/4.
It's not actually blocking here because, again, Swift Spear is a very scary card. It could actually block. I mean, you could run the block and hope he doesn't have a 3rd Titan Strength or Coordinated Assault, but I think you just want to keep the Corsair in play.
The longer Ulanov tanks, though, the more likely I am to block.
Yeah, the problem is you lose your creature to Lightning Strike too. See, like,
He would have cast a second Lightning Strike last turn if he had it.
No, you lose Corsair to Lightning Strike.
Oh, sure.
But the thing is, if you're at 19 and you don't block, what's the worst that can happen? You take 1. I mean, maybe you take 3 if he pumps, but then you're really happy about that. There's no scenario where you get blown out here. Whereas if you block, you let him use his mana to kill your cards. Whereas right now, Denis is not actually able to leverage
So even
his
if you
mana.
think there's a decent chance Denis is bluffing, it's just not worth it to call?
Yeah, if I thought there was a 50% chance or even like 70% chance.
Yeah, I'm on 60% bluff.
Yeah.
60% plus bluff for me, but it may not be worth blocking because even if you're right, it's not that big of an edge. And the times when you're wrong are really bad.
Also, I think Corsair is just very good to have out here. It could lead to an extra point off Genesis Hydra.
Yeah, you talked me into not blocking even though I'm putting Denis on a bluff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has it if I'm Daniel, but I also don't think it's worth it. The risk reward is just not there. If I'm at 8 lower life, things change, then I'm blocking.
Right.
So it looks like he didn't block, and he's just going to pump once here to hit for 2.
And then play presumably something like a Frenzied Goblin.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is, Frenzied Goblin. All right, pass the turn back. Now Daniel's got 5 mana currently, and he finds, a second Corsair of Kruphix.
So now he knows he can hit off Genesis Hydra. He could actually play, because it looked like he had Nykthos in hand. He could play Nykthos and just not sack Wooded Foothills and just play Genesis Hydra for 3, hitting the Corsair.
That's not too bad.
Now then you have a Wooded Foothills out, which kind of draws you an extra card, because it shuffles away the first bad card you see.
And it also gains you 2 life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, 1 life, but...
1 additional life, yeah.
It's a shame you won't be able to hit a land drop then, because you already played it off Nykthos, so you're giving up that, but I kind of like this play. And a 3/3 Genesis Hydra is fine. I mean, it puts another blocker into play.
Yeah, tussles nicely. Yeah, I like that play. Let's see what Daniel likes.
I mean, the upside to Kraken Wooded Foothills is you get to cast it for 4, but then you might miss. It's very realistic to miss at that point. You have cards like Crater's Claws in your deck.
Yeah, he's going for it just at 3. I assume there's nothing better he can hit. Yeah, and there it is.
Wow.
4
would have hit Pelucranos on that draw, but what are you going to do?
And the shields are kind of up here. I mean,
Yeah.
Daniel's out of cards, but with 2 Corsairs and a fetch land, he's got a very likely chance of having his next draw step be good, because he has to hit 2 bad cards in a row. And he's got a 3/3 and 2 2/4s.
He's actually got 12
life.
toughness up against the
Yeah.
up against the mono red slide deck here. Looks like a couple of questions for the judge just to get things clarified. Yeah, I like just putting 2 creatures into play here regardless of what they are. It makes Frenzy Goblins so much worse.
Yeah, now, I don't like sending here. I would just keep the Corsair back. Oh, Sarkhan, I'll take that. Sarkhan can just devour the Monastery Swift Spear.
I like the flip. Yeah, your turn, man.
Yeah, go for
I've
it.
done enough.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, and Denis has been kind of plagued by mana problems. He missed a second land drop, then he played a second land, but he hasn't really been able to get on the board in like an efficient manner. He's also, been using mana to like pump into Dragon Mantle because he has these like lightning strikes and stokes in his hand. So he's not really making headway here. He's not at a point where he can play 2 hammer hands and really make a move. He's just, this isn't the kind of game he wants to play. He wants to play when his opponent's behind and playing 1 creature a turn. Dennis' options, he can lightning strike the Hydra, but he has no attacks then. He can cast Stoke the Flames, that also uses his whole turn. He's really not going to be effectively able to play more than one card a turn here unless he's got 2 other 1-drops in hand. But if he had 3 1-drops in hand last turn, I imagine he would have played one instead of using Dragon Mantle.
Definitely.
It's not often you see that the red 1-drop deck is the one choked on plays, but that's what it looks like here.
All right, Dragon Mantle it is. Basically just to draw a card here.
Yeah, makes the Swift Spear a little bit better. I guess he can play Foundry Street Gunners, and he drew that, so that at least gets him to play a couple cards, but he's just not getting ahead.
Get through for 18?
Soon to be 19, soon to be 21. You know,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But Daniel's winning percentage from here, it's well over 90%.
I agree with that.
I mean, does Dennis?
Dennis is not winning this game.
No,
I mean,
does
we've
Dennis have
seen
even a 1% chance to win?
We've seen his deck capable of big chunks of damage, but not on the level that Daniel's going to be putting up here. And Daniel can close out the game pretty quickly too. I mean, on the same turn cycle that Dennis is playing a Foundry Street Denizen, Daniel's going to be playing Sarkon. Like, we've entered a stage of that.
And he hit a Temple. Temple's really good as well. So here, I kind of like play this.
He's at 20.
Yep. Look at the top card from Courser, but probably crack Fetch in response. Yeah, I don't like scrying there. Because you know you're gonna scry to the bottom anyway. And you have to crack the Fetch if you want to play the Sarkon. So in response to the scry trigger, you can crack the Fetch, and he would basically just get a free scry at the end of this shuffle.
After the shuffle rather than before it.
Because you know you're cracking the Fetch anyway.
Sure.
And if by some chance you see something on top that's so good that you want to keep it on top and not play the Sarkon, you also have that option. Kind of funny interaction with coursers and fetch lands and scry lands and hit stuff.
So Daniel's going to gain 2 more life and go to 23 here.
He's going to play Sarkon. And I imagine just killing the Monastery Swift Spear or Frenzied Goblin is the safest route. He could just plus it and attack with everything.
He is actually to that point.
I wonder what that looks like. You're smashing for,
Let's see, 4,
11?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Well, he's smashing with just the Dragon Speaker.
He's happy to hide behind his Coursers of Crufix and his 3/3 Genesis Hydra. He passes the turn back with his opponent at 12. Dennis is at 21.
And he would have scried that mountain to the bottom if he had the extra scry, I believe. So
Yeah.
he'd be kind of up a card. Dennis, still no third land it looks like, so he's got Stoke the Flames, but he doesn't really have a very realistic way of threatening Sarkon this turn. I mean, if he could get a point of damage through, he could Stoke, but that requires probably tapping his creatures, in which case he's not attacking, in which case how is he getting the point of damage through? This is a tough game for Dennis to play because he's so behind, but he's got all these decisions. He does have 6 cards in his hand. He's got a lot of plays. I mean, how many of them get him out of this? Well, very few, but it still doesn't mean he shouldn't try. He should look for the best play, and that is going to be tough. That does lead to a mono-red deck taking a lot longer than the red-green deck, which is just like, yeah, play my best card, my only card every single turn.
Right. I think he's going to go to attacks. He's going to attack Sarkon with the Monastery Swift Spear alone.
Certainly getting blocked. My inclination is just put Genesis Hydra into play. Like, Dennis has to play a card in order to make this trade here.
Daniel, I think he views that Genesis Hydra as expendable as well. He's already gotten his value out of it. So he's going to throw it in front of the Swift Spear and make Dennis come up with a couple of spells here.
And now Dennis doesn't even have a great lightning strike target. Looks like he's just killing the Hydra.
Yeah.
Just trying to get a free roll attack, like maybe he won't block or maybe he'll block with the wrong thing.
Right. And there's the Mountain and there's Xenagos the Reveler. Gain another couple of life. So somehow Daniel Scheid is now going to be at 23 life against the mono red deck, and he's ahead on board, ahead on life. He's not ahead on cards, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter here.
Dennis might have some decent outs here. Let's see if he maybe stokes away one of the coursers, attacks with Frenzied Goblin. Yeah, I don't know. It seems tough still. I mean, because he still has to point 6 points of damage at the Sarkhan. And part of the problem is like any sequence of plays that gets Denis kind of out of this requires Daniel to draw off maybe 6 cards out of his deck, just given that he's at 23 life, he's going to get a bunch of draw steps. The coursers are going to be in play, which negates a lot of the lands he could draw. So Denis has to hope that Daniel somehow hits like 10 lands in a row after the Xenagos.
Even then, Denis Ulanov is at 7 here.
Yeah, and at some point the coursers can just start attacking.
Yes.
Frenzied Goblin can't really stop, Elvish Mystic from just jumping in the way, even if it stops one of the coursers. Monastery Swiftspear is being limited by the fact that Denis only has 2 mana, so he's at most playing 2 spells, unless he sets up a turn where he can cast like 2 spells and a Stoke, but he doesn't even have that many creatures in play, so that's difficult too. He needs like an Accruing Crusader for all those Dragon Mantles. Stoke's a powerful card. I think it might be, one of the best cards in M15. It's showing up in a lot of different decks and it being cast for a very little amount of mana.
Yeah. So he found another Monastery Swiftspear. He's going to play that. He is going to attack.
Representing Stoke.
Because he played it pre-combat.
Yeah. But even then, if you just block with the Courser, there's no real downside. I mean, you can Stoke and then your Swiftspear's a 2/3 and that doesn't actually kill the Courser for free.
Right.
It's possible that Denis wants to like spend a turn stoking Sarkhan and then untap and cast Lightning Strike on Sarkhan if he's got another Lightning Strike. It takes a couple turns. There's also a chance that Daniel just ultimate Sarkhan this turn.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
I don't think that's unreasonable. You're at 23 and you have 2 coursers in play, so you're just drawing all gas.
You're gaining 2 life a turn almost for the rest of the game.
Xenagos to block. I mean, one of the ways you can lose is if you try to kill him but end up with him at 3 life and not quite dead, and then he outcards you. I mean, I think Daniel's likely to win regardless, but it's possible that an ultimate Sarkhan is actually the way to go. And I wonder if Denis is thinking about just casting Stoke now to prevent that line of play.
It looks like he decided to do nothing. Pass the turn back. Xenagos goes into hand for Daniel Scheid. He finds a mountain on top, and here's draw step, stoke the flames, it looks like, on the courser.
At least make it so Daniel's only getting 1 life off this extra land. So now the untapped Swiftspear is a 2/3, but I think Daniel can just attack for the win here, right? He can play Xenagos, make a token, make Sarkhan a creature, attack with everything. Swiftspear blocks the token or a courser, and if Denis is at 7 instead of 8, then that works. But it looked like he got attacked from 12 down to 8, so I'm not sure if that life total is 100% accurate.
Okay.
If he's at 7, Daniel can win the game this turn. If Denis is at 8, then that line of play I don't think is what you want to do.
So there's Xenagos. Make a guy.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get away from making a satyr here.
Right, that's the easy part. So does he see the victory here? All right, looks like Denis is actually...
Oh yeah, I like this. This is where I want
He went for it.
Yeah.
This is sweet. He just ultimated Sarkhan versus the mono red deck. That's pretty insane.
And now Denis is at 9, which I...
Yes.
So, okay, looks like 9 is the correct life total, which definitely makes trying to go for the win not good. I like ultimating Sarkhan here.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is...
And not just because I like drawing extra cards.
Right. Sarkhan's going to allow Denis to draw 2 extra cards per turn, but with the caveat that he has to discard his hand at the end of the turn. But with all that mana available, and especially with the Courser in play, he's going to be able to basically hit land drops for the rest of the game and play between 1 and 3 spells probably for the rest of the game, and he's just going to overwhelm Denis from this point on. Pretty sick.
Yeah, and I think that this is actually Daniel's best course of winning, because if he tries to kill Denis and ends up, falling short, all that effort didn't do anything.
Right.
Whereas if he ultimates Sarkhan now, he's just set up to play for the long game, and that's what his deck's best at doing anyway, at least in this matchup. And, Daniel can still just draw Storm Breath and, kill Denis out of nowhere, but I think putting himself in a position where maybe Denis makes an attack that kills Sarkhan and Denis ends up at 3 or 4 life, but Daniel's out of cards, You could actually lose from there, especially since Denis has a lot of creatures in play.
Right. All right, there's Goblin Rabblemaster for Ulanov.
Right on schedule.
Yeah.
Turn 8.
So Denis is fighting hard here, but
barring another Stoke, even this turn is not going to go all that well for Denis. A Stoke would make this pretty good, but without a Stoke, I mean, a 2-2, a 2-4, and a 1-1 can actually make some pretty good blocks here.
okay, make a Goblin. And who's coming into the red zone? We know the Goblin is.
Well, we know the Goblins are.
The Goblins are. So there's... Is the Foundry Street Den in a Goblin? Yes.
Yeah. As is the... Well, Frenzied Goblin's actually not a Goblin.
Come on. But it looks like he has found a way to make them not go into the red
so
zone
Stoke
with
is
the
the card
Stoke
he wanted
he
to.
had, yeah.
Because then now you can Stoke the Courser, and then you have 3/2/3 Monastery Swift Spears. So you can all attack Xenagos, I guess? So if you do that, it requires Chump to keep Xenagos alive.
Which is an option.
Yeah. All right, this turn is actually pretty good for Denis. And again, I think Daniel, is glad that he ultimated Sarkhan here. Otherwise, he would have a tapped Sarkhan and Denis would be at 5, but then the Sarkhan might go down.
Yeah. I think he's going to chump here. I mean, he gets the Satyr back anyway. Oh, he's just going to let it die. Interesting.
End up with an Elvish Mystic, basically. So,
yeah.
Sarkhan Emblem, he draws 2, plus that card for his turn. Yeah, this is going to be pretty good.
He found a Lightning Strike and something. Couldn't quite see the rest.
Something looks like a Pelucranos, which
It does indeed.
Substantial as well.
Remember, he has to discard his hand on end step, so he's only able to use the ones that he can deploy right now. He can't do any shenanigans, so we'll get to see all of it right away. Thinking about attacking with the Satyr, it looks like, maybe even the Mystic.
Yeah, you can attack with both, maybe go, I mean, he's at 24, so Daniel could attack with both, putting Denis to 6, play Elvish Mystic, Lightning Strike the Rabblemaster. I mean, that's the obvious target. And he could Lightning Strike Denis, put him to 3, but that seems, again, a little ambitious.
There goes Rabblemaster down. And there's the Mystic. So this is exactly what happens with Sarkhan's Ultimate. He now has just played 3 spells in this one turn because at the point in the stage of the game that he actually fired the Ultimate off, he's got tons of mana, so he's able to just deploy all of the cards. And in this case, he drew 3 spells off of it. Often you'll find lands too, but this is what it's going to be like for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's why he didn't attack. I mean, attacking here, when you're drawing 3 cards a turn, why get into a race? Why not just play defensively?
I'm sure Ulanov would love the opportunity to get into a race here, so good for Daniel for not obliging him.
We've got a lot of Monastery Swift Spears in play.
All of them.
Well, 4 out of his 5.
Let's hope not. There are all 4 on the battlefield here. I don't know how many cards Denis has left. He was able to finally kind of dump his hand on the table here.
He's done it in a way that's scary enough for Daniel to want to play defense.
I mean, now that you're getting 4 prowess triggers every time you play a spell, that is reasonable. Here comes Hammerhands.
How about Hammerhand?
Denis is finally out of resources. After spending this whole game with like 6 cards in his hand, he's actually hellbent now. And that's going to make things a little easier for Daniel. Daniel's going to get to untap a Pelucranos, which is... I don't see how that doesn't just kill Denis.
Yeah. All right, but Pelucranos doesn't get to block here.
Like, Daniel could just run the no blocks, and I think he'd be fine here. He's obviously going to make some blocks, but he is in pretty good shape. Because next turn, Pelucranos can just eat whatever remaining blockers Denis have and come over for lethal.
And just kill him. Yeah, Denis has to be really careful about the crack back here, right? Like, he wants to get aggressive. He wants to start taking life total away, but he's got to protect his own life total in a really big way. And Pelucranos on the battlefield means that he's going to know exactly what Daniel Scheid can do on his turn, especially since Denis is now completely out of cards. So it's all right there.
How many can you Pelucranos for?
All the info's there.
Yeah, I don't think Denis can win this game. I mean, if he leaves too many cards back to deal with Pelucranos, then Daniel just draws 3 cards in his turn and wins the game.
Yeah.
If he attacks with everything, then Daniel uses Pelucranos in his turn and wins the game. So
he does not have a good option here. But he certainly doesn't want to leave himself dead to just onboard kill here. I mean, that seems unnecessary. Denis is looking at his Monastery Swift Spears and really in the tank here. So he's just not going to attack at all.
I don't think he can. I mean, I think if he makes too ambitious of an attack, he just gets crushed in the backswing. I think he's likely to lose if he passes the turn after the 3 cards, but there's definitely likely to lose and just losing on board.
Actual dead, yeah. He's kind of going through the motions again, lining up what different attacks look like. He still has that red mana float there sitting down there so he can use his Frenzy Goblin too. So this is a pretty complicated attack step. Looks like he wants to leave back the Swift Spears because they're a little bit harder to kill for Pelucranos.
It looks like Frenzied Goblin forcing the Satyr to not block.
Speaking of not blocking, I don't know that Daniel really needs to block at all here. He certainly can.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to throw away the Elvish Mystics. You could, because blocking like a Foundry Shoot Denizen isn't
Mystical
too
Denizen
bad.
looks pretty good here, doesn't it?
But if you just want to use Pelucranos, I mean...
Yeah, I think I'd trade for that. I think the Denizen's a 3-1, right? He played 2 Swift Spears this turn. It's pretty academic at this point, as Daniel's at 17 anyway. And there's Lightning Strike.
Hornet Queen.
Another Hornet Queen.
So
he's left 6 toughness
he needs
back.
13 mana to win the game with Pelucranos.
So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 off of
But
Nykthos, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh. Or just do Crater's Claws.
How about we just kill you instead? Crater's Claws to the face. All right, so Denis Ulanov was the one who wanted to be doing such things, but Daniel Scheid is the one who gets to finish off with a burn spell here. And that is going to bring us to our second game. Let's take a look at our bracket and how we got here. Denis Ulanov had to beat Abzan Aggro and then had to win the mirror to get to the finals. And on the other side, Daniel Scheid, he had to take down Abzan mid-range twice to get here, and he did.
And so far, he's played against, Abzan, and then Sly, which is basically the exact opposite.
Yeah, completely end of the spectrum. Daniel Scheid was our second seed coming in. He played against Tamada in the last round of Swiss. Tamada was playing actually to be completely undefeated in the Swiss portion, but and Daniel was playing to try to make it into the top 8. He found himself in a situation where he would like to draw, but his opponent had other incentives, so he ended up having to play, but he earned it. He got there.
And he got the number 2 seed as a result. If his opponent had drawn, then maybe in one of his matches he wouldn't have gotten to play first, and that could have been worse for him. I think post-board this gets a lot better for Daniel. I mean, adding 3 Anger of the Gods and adding a Crater's Claws as a way to interact early, I think is just very good for him. He gets to take out cards like, I think Genocide is not really what you're looking for. It's basically an 8 mana spell, 7 mana spell. I guess it came out for 5 and had good effect last game, but that was partially because he had information from the Courser.
Yeah.
Getting extra cards when you're already up a game, pretty nice.
Yeah, Denis does get Harnessed by Force. That card is effective, but when Daniel has a bunch of creatures out, he has like a Xenagos, an Elvish Mystic, even taking a Pelucranos and attacking with it isn't going to change that much. It's going to remove a blocker and give you an extra attacker, but that at no point would have drawing it that game had done anything.
True.
Harnessed by Force is the Strive active treason.
It is, and if you're in a position to strive it with Denis's deck, you're not too happy about that.
But since he's mono red, it's a free roll anyway.
Yeah, the extra casting cost at the front, red 1 instead of 2 red is not a drawback that exists for a mono red deck.
It's a wash.
But other than that, I mean, Denis doesn't have a whole lot that looks. I mean, Blinding Flare looks like it could be good, but he said that was his worst card in his deck in his top 8 profile.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said he wouldn't play Blinding Flare again. So, but in a stalled board like that, all of a sudden making it so none of your opponent's creatures can block, I mean, that definitely does something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the big disadvantages to deciding to play a monocolor deck, though, is that you get a lot fewer options out of your sideboard. You're kind of stuck with a really similar plan going in where, even 2 colors gives you a pretty big swath. And if you look at the sideboards for the Abzan or the Jeskai decks, they vary quite a bit just because you have so many different choices. It's kind of like, what do you want to be able to beat?
Well, the fact that you're playing a 17-land mono-red deck that all has 1/1s and auras kind of limits your choices even further.
It's a little bit narrow.
That's different than a mid-range deck that is fine going big or slow, or fast.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the downsides to playing decks like Denis is you don't get a sideboard. It's the same with playing the Jeskai Ascendancy deck. You basically just don't get a sideboard. Some of these decks just don't sideboard well. The more focused your deck, the less good sideboard options you have. The fewer colors you have, the less good sideboard options you have, and the less lands in your deck, it actually cuts it off too.
So he's all the way on all 3 spectrums there.
Exactly.
Few lands, 1 color, very focused.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a deck that has lots of 26 lands, it can side in 1 mana cards and 6 mana cards. When you have a deck that has 17 lands, it can side in 1 mana cards and 2 mana cards,
right.
Maybe 3 mana cards.
And in this case of only 1 color, yeah, and he can only side in so many, or else his whole game plan goes out the door. Daniel's got a lot more flexibility since he can make so much mana.
Yeah, and he's happy siding in cheap cards and he's happy siding in expensive cards. In this case, he gets some decent cheap cards. I mean, 3 is not 1, but Anger of the Gods is more effective than pretty much anything else that Denis is used to facing.
And he's going to take out most of his expensive stuff, like he's got that Hornet Queen that's coming out, right?
Yeah, I would expect to take out those. Sarkhan actually doesn't seem that great either, so I think he would rather play a lot of the cheaper cards. He doesn't need the cards that win him the game on 7 mana.
Randy, give me a win percentage here. He's up a game, and now he gets the sideboard. It looks really good for Daniel Scheid, but we're still playing Magic the Gathering here.
75, maybe 80?
Yeah, I think being up a game and siding in Anger, which I think makes, whatever the matchup was before, go up by a couple percent for Daniel.
What do you think of the sort of combination of devotion and monsters that Daniel's got, Luis?
I like it. I mean, it looks like it's played out pretty well. We've seen this is the second kind of light devotion deck we've seen where it's got a lot of the marquee devotion cards, but isn't really a devotion deck. It's got Pelucranos and it's got Hornet Queen and it's got Nykthos, but it doesn't have great numbers of them, and it also there's 2 Genesis Hydra in the deck, and so
1 Nykthos.
Yeah, it's not all in on that. It's got a bunch of red burn spells and Stormbreath Dragons. So Daniel's deck is the one I'm most interested in trying out after this tournament because it's more different than all the other decks. Than the decks I played, and it's not a 17-land mono red deck, which I categorically refuse to play, except I played it at a Pro Tour 6 months ago, or like 3 months ago actually, so I actually can't even say that.
Xenagos is a planeswalker that seems to have disappeared from Standard.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Xenagos itself just because of how weak it is to Mana Strider, but if the Abzan decks are driving out the Mana Striders, then Xenagos looks a lot better.
He had a long stay in Standard. Green-red monsters followed up by Jund monsters, and I saw that card a lot.
Perhaps the Great Revel has finally ended.
And the Mana Strider was the one that crashed the party.
I guess
well,
so.
except the Eidolon of the Great Revel is actually becoming a more popular card. I've seen a lot of that card, especially in the Eternal format. It's more modern than anything else.
I've seen it in Modern too. Dennis isn't running that card, right?
One of them was.
He has 4 in his sideboard.
Oh, he's got 4 on the
sideboard,
board.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the best cards I can think of to bring in against Jeskai Ascendancy with this list. And it seems like a very good card against a control deck, like a blue-black control deck. Just punishing them every time they cast, one of their removal spells is really big. And it looks like we're just about ready to start game 2 here.
We are almost ready. Oh, well, we're ready.
We're ready.
We're definitely ready. That was a monumental sideboard session
Leisurely
there.
shuffling.
Yeah, people do get into a slightly more methodic pace of play and shuffling and sideboarding once they're in, like, you know, the high stakes matches, the top 4 finals of the GP.
Yeah, I can't blame them. Though this is the most randomized deck in the history of Magic right here. This thing is
Okay, video.
very random. I just had Frank run the numbers, and
Frank did run the numbers. He also ran the camera, apparently, last round.
all right, we might need to change his sleeves here if he keeps going. But you never really want to tell somebody not, you know, it's better to have it on this end of the spectrum than somebody who feels like they can just give it a quick riffle and hand it off. That's pretty bad, but this is a incredibly thorough shuffle job here.
I think we've crossed over from randomized to de-randomized.
It's back in order.
Is that how it works?
I believe that's how it works. That's what I've been told.
All right. All right, so let's get game 2 underway here in the finals. It has been a long road for these players, but they have found themselves facing off for the trophy. This game could decide it. If Daniel Scheid were to win it, somebody who says his best finish is multiple second places at F&M could be a Grand Prix champion at the end of this game. It's pretty incredible stuff. Denis has a bit more experience at a higher level of tournament play, and he needs to even things up if he wants to keep his shot for the trophy alive. And this is a nice start.
This is more what he's looking for.
Yeah, you block, right?
You gotta block
depends
that,
on your turn.
Dennis.
If you've got a courser on your turn, then I could definitely see not blocking here.
Now, let's see if he's
okay.
got it.
I'll
That's
buy
a
that.
good point.
We're not seeing Anger of the Gods. Not this turn.
Green. He's got Lightning Strike in his hand, so I think he's going to go Elf and leave up Lightning Strike.
Huh.
He could just... Yeah, I guess he's doing this so that his Elf doesn't get burned and he doesn't end up in a spot where he can't cast Lightning Strike. But being able to block with 2 Elves seems like it could be valuable as well.
And because you can still tap the other.
But of course, if you're just going to Lightning Strike now, it doesn't actually matter. And I think that's what it's looking like.
On the Crusader.
On the Crusader, he wants to make sure that things stay narrowed in a little bit. He knows that it looks like his draw is going to have a rough time beating a whole bunch of tokens.
Yeah, clearly does not have an Anger of the Gods in his hand at this point, right?
No.
Seems unlikely.
Spot removal and 2 1-drops if he's got Anger of the Gods.
Well,
He is not doing
luckily
it right.
for Daniel, Denis doesn't have, you know, apparently a Dragon Mantle or any sort of way to target that Chrome Crusader, or I think it would have happened while Daniel was tapped out, to get an extra hasted soldier to make the Foundry Denizen just that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a Wooded Foothills. Crack that.
I think this is right where Daniel wants to be. His life total is actually pretty high. He's at 15.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, or 14 now after the Foothills. He's going to get to play something decent here. If he plays like a Pelucrinus here, Denis is reasonably behind.
So let's see what he's got for the turn. We figure he probably would have played the Courser Crew Fix last turn if he had it. Though he could have been really worried.
Lightning Strike plus Elvish Mystic's actually pretty decent.
Yeah,
too.
it was a good turn. Was that an Ash Cloud Phoenix?
It is an Ash Cloud Phoenix, and that's not actually a bad play either.
No. No, he gets to trade it off, turn it back into a morph, and live to block again.
And 2/2s are pretty reasonable against an army of 1/1s.
Yeah. Interesting, Ash
Sorry,
Cloud
that sounded
Phoenix.
like a Marshall Sutcliffe quote.
Oh, stop. Great blocker somehow.
Yeah.
Ash Cloud Phoenix.
Of
Looks
course-
like an aggressive card.
Yeah,
you know.
at 4/1 flyer, it looks like an attacker, but the fact that it leaves with 2/2 in its wake, you know, and eventually can flip up, though I don't think we're going to see that this game. It's just
No.
the sequence of events that would lead to that. Probably not good for Denis, actually.
Right. 2 damage could be a thing, but now Denis Ulanov sitting on mono red just doesn't really have much choice here.
He might not even have a good play. I mean,
Right.
like if his hand is Lightning Strike, he can Lightning Strike the Phoenix,
Get
and
in
attack
with
with the
Swift
2/3
Spear.
Swift Spear,
Yeah.
and that is just such an anemic play.
And
for
that's
his
your turn, yeah.
Like even like a Stoke the Flames is not really what you want. Daniel's at 14, so he's not really in burn range.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Let's
That's
get
a good
aggressive.
Wow.
Harness by force to steal your guy.
Wow.
And that's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7 damage here. That's half of Daniel's remaining life total.
Never mind, this game might have turned around.
Yeah.
Sideboard cards are good.
You may have that back, and now it feels like he's one more of those away,
Yeah.
or, you know, now he's in Stoke plus Lightning Strike range here. Wow. Harness by force, what a big swing.
So now Daniel has got to be a lot more worried. He was looking pretty good last game, or last turn. He's like, you know, whatever you do, I'm still at pretty high life. But basically killing the Phoenix for a turn and dealing 4 extra damage to Daniel was, plus the Monastery Swift Spear triggers, that was a big spell.
It was huge.
Daniel might not actually have a good way to play around Harness by Force. The fact that Phoenix has flying is a bit of a liability here. And so I like circuiting away the Swift Spear or the Crusader here.
Yeah, I think I hit the Crusader.
Yeah, that seems like the play, because you can just leave the Phoenix back to block the Swift Spear. You don't care that Swift Spear has prowess.
Right, but this also means that Harness by Force number 2 is game.
Yeah, it
Don't
puts
think
you
you're
to
beating
1.
that
I
one.
think you're in that spot no matter what, though.
Yeah. Ah, you're right, it is 1. Dennis says, I've been ignoring this card all day. I don't have to read it.
Yeah, no one's played it against me because it's not good.
Right now it only has 1 mode.
But Dennis is 2 burn spells away from forcing a game 3 here.
Right. Daniel Scheid desperately trying to stabilize here. It looked like he was okay, and then he took 7 damage to the head. But Denis Ulanov has passed the turn back to Daniel. Maybe he's got Stoke the Flames, maybe he's out of gas.
I thought I glimpsed a Stoke, which would put him a lightning strike away from winning the game. But he doesn't have a ton of time. I mean, Daniel can start attacking for a decent amount of damage with that Sarkin.
He's going to start that. No other choice here anyway, so Ulanov drops down to 16. And there's Storm Breath, which is going to stay back. That's interesting.
So we're
Here's Stoke the Flames.
playing around Harness by Force. Now Harness by Force is no longer lethal.
And he has the other Stoke the Flames,
just
so
double
we're
stack.
going to get a game 3 here. Daniel Scheid, you know, he played a bunch of spells. He did what he wanted to do, but Denis Ulanov had the sideboard tech there with the Harness by Force to really put it to him, and then he had 2 of his 4 Stokes. So we're going to get a game 3.
Yeah, and it's looking like it.
Really not much Daniel could do that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think given that his turn 3 play was Ash Cloud Phoenix instead of, you know, Pelucranos or Courser, he was just going to be vulnerable to Harness by Force, and I don't think there's much he could have done to change that. I mean, Harness by Force is good against all the flyers. I guess his deck does have Storm Breaths and Ash Cloud Phoenixes, and having those instead of the ground creatures means your Elvish Mystics can't chump the threatened creatures, which is very relevant.
How many Harness by Force does Denis have?
2.
He's got 2 to bring in out of the board.
And both players are aware of this.
Now where do you put Daniel's winning percentage?
Above 50%, but
He's still on the play. He's still
Yeah.
got Anger of the Gods in his deck.
my guess is something like 60%. I think he's a slight favorite.
Sounds about right.
And they're back to studying the deck sheets again.
You sounded excited.
Yeah. Game was pretty quick.
Luckily, Daniel doesn't have a ton of options. I mean, he could take out Ash Cloud Phoenix and maybe go down to like 2 Storm Breaths to try to minimize how many targets he has for Harness. But Denis, whether he wants burn or not is pretty important. Whether he wants, you know, like how many cards, like, you know, he definitely wants the Harness by Force, and probably the Blinding Flare, but what do you take out? I mean, do you take out Dragon Mantles because they're slower? You probably don't take out Hammer Hands. Those seem kind of important here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it looks like Daniel's already kind of made his decision there.
Yeah, I'm
Dennis
really just hoping that Dennis starts shuffling soon, because
Yeah.
Dennis has much tighter decisions to make on his end, both during play and in sideboarding here. These decks, like the one that Dennis is playing, are so unforgiving. You just don't get to make mistakes with those decks very often.
I think that the commonly held, red decks are too easy to play sort of thing is not entirely accurate. I mean, it is true that red decks, have pretty high variance draws. Sometimes you get draws like where you just keep a one-lander, or you draw 5 land and it feels like you're pretty powerless to stop things. But sometimes you get draws where you have 3 lands and you have 5 spells that cost 1 and 1, and you have a convoke spell, and it's like, how do I play this hand out? It is actually, difficult.
Right, and if you miss damage in a deck like that, it can be so punishing. Look at the shadow of the trophy. That looks sweet.
Yeah, I like that.
It looks like a Black Lotus.
That's a cool shot.
So Ulanov now has, looks like 5 piles of sideboard decisions to go.
Yep.
But like I said, he can't afford to give up anything here. So I think he's got some notes.
He's got sideboard notes on this matchup.
Highly unlikely. Right. Maybe an approximation of it. I don't think Green Red Monsters was on anybody's list as far as like way high up. It was around. It's not like the deck doesn't exist. We saw some of it at the Pro Tour.
It feels like it's been largely replaced by the devotion lists. I mean, most of the heavy green sort of light splash lists are devotion based.
Well, once you lost Domri, I think that was a lot of the incentive to be like Green Red Monsters style was gone. But I guess the addition of Sarkhan and Crater's Claws just gave it some new tools. And Crater's Claws especially looks very good. I mean, whatever the rare red XX damage spell is in the set, because there's usually one almost every single big set, right?
Yeah,
one per year, has generally seen play. Like Banefire was good, Demon Fire was good, and Devil's Play was quite good.
Sure.
It doesn't all see a ton of play, but it all sees play. And Crater's Claws, I think, might be one of the best ones we've seen.
We don't have to talk about Bonfire.
Well, that one's a little different. That's not a straight up burn spell. That's
all right.
But yeah,
it's a bad memory.
Yeah. I mean, it led to a nice little clip. I will give you that.
You did get story value out of it, but I can't imagine that the memory itself felt too great.
But the addition of the 2 extra damage off Ferocious for Crater's Claws, I think, has made it, clearly find a place in Consume.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Kibler had it, he almost made top 8. Daniel is sitting here in the finals with it.
There was actually a point when I was watching the match before this one with Daniel where he could have done 14 with Crater's Claws.
Yeah.
He had the win on the table anyway, thanks to Monster seeing his Stormbreath Dragon, but I was just doing the math and I'm like, wow.
You were running the numbers?
I actually had Frank do it, but yeah. The number that he spat out was 14. I was like, wow.
You don't know how he got there, but
I have no
you know
idea.
it was right.
Yeah. Guy has a PhD. Looks like the players are joking around a little, having some fun with it.
Yeah, what else are they going to do?
I wouldn't do that.
Really?
No, I would just stare at my opponent and try to make him nervous. Do you know how nervous people get in this scenario? I would be nervous.
I guess I don't, but I don't know. I certainly don't talk a lot while I'm in my match.
No.
But yeah, in between games, I don't mind talking with my opponent.
I will in a normal game, but if I'm in the GP finals, I'm concentrating. I don't want to chit chat.
Fair enough.
All right, so game 3, pretty soon.
Well, one can assume that it's coming.
It will be here shortly, and we're gonna find a champion here, and the champion is not going to be piloting Abzan, and it will also not be piloted by Jeskai. We'll see neither of those.
None of the clans. We have no clans in this final.
No.
That's a pretty big upset.
There was plenty of it here, right? We saw Sultai pop up.
I remember I was doing the undefeated breakdown at the end of last night.
Yeah.
And I looked at tables, there were 10 players at 8-0 trying to play to be undefeated overnight. It only took me 3 tables to find all 5 clans.
Unbelievable.
It was Sultai versus Temur, And they were all there.
Yeah, Mardu mid-range made a nice appearance here.
And then, of course, there were 2 Obzons of the 6.
Yeah.
And then I get to table 4, and this deck, the mono red deck, was there.
4 Obzon lists made it to the top 8 here of a couple of different varieties. But we also saw that they also made up the vast majority, well, not the vast majority, but the biggest single chunk of the metagame at the tournament. So it's not super surprising that, 3 or 4 of them would make it.
Yeah, except Jeskai had that much, and like I
Jeskai
said, I wanted to
over.
look at the top 16, but there weren't any in the top 8, and I can't name any in the top 16 either.
You named Benstar.
Well, yeah, so
Tied for
if
top
we're counting
16,
top
on the
16,
X3s,
yeah.
basically.
And
Did it get to X3?
I suppose we had some people playing, like Austin Bach was playing for top 8 against Brad, and actually ended up losing for top 8.
Yeah, Fabrizio Anteri was also playing for top 8 and lost. He had the controllers
so,
version
so
with.
if it could have just been 3 Jeskai in the top 8 if like a couple of matches went differently, right? Like at least those 2 could have made it if they just won their last match.
I think it could have been 2.
Yeah.
I don't think it could be 3.
But if those 2 had won, then we would have 1 less Obzon and 1 less Mardu and 2 more Jeskai. And so that doesn't actually look that different.
All right, looks like we're underway here, gentlemen. We
underway with what?
Well, with mulligan decisions.
I think there's 25 or 30 decks that are 12-3 or better. If there's only 3 Jeskai in there, that's definitely an upset.
Yeah.
It could easily be 1 or 2 more that we don't know about.
Daniel Scheid is kept. Let's see if Dennis has a keep as well. No, we wouldn't run that good. But you said this deck, mulligan's okay anyway?
I think it mulligans reasonably well. I mean, when you're trying, I think decks mulligan against it better than it mulligans though. I think when you're trying to assemble cards like Hammer Hands and Foundry Sheet Denizen and Monastery Swiftspear, all those cards need a lot of other cards. So I actually think the mono red deck doesn't mulligan all that well. I think decks playing against it get a little bit more forgiving mulligans because they don't need to do as much if they have the 1 or 2 good cards they need.
Okay, so that could actually be pretty rough beats here for Denis Ulanov. He's going down to 6 cards. He is on the draw this time, though. He won the last game, so Daniel Scheid is going to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief to be on the play.
Who would be the con for the mono red clan?
Zergo, Helm Smasher.
Zergo is.
Oh yeah,
he's
7/2 must attack.
Isn't he already taken?
Yeah, I think he's taken.
We're looking for a new.
Oh, I thought you mean which of their existing cons? Would
No, like.
I mean Chandra, right? Like she shows up, puts on a clan hat or whatever, and.
Stormbreath Dragon.
It's hard to understand what his orders are, but.
They worship Stormbreath Dragon. That makes sense. It's a plane where everyone worships dragons.
I'm in.
So what are you hoping for out of these 6, Marshall?
I'm hoping for 2 mountains and 4 spells.
Yeah, that sounds.
I will take
pretty
whatever
accurate.
ones I get.
No,
as long
honestly,
as
one
mountain
and 5 spells is pretty close to keepable too.
Okay.
I would say unless those 5 spells that happen to be bad, the one land, that one mana cost deck is not mulling to 5 when it has.
You're normally keeping 5 and 1 on the draw.
You're normally keeping 6 and 1, I think too. I mean, he did game 1.
Yeah, on the draw.
If you have 3 1-drops and like a Titan Strength and a Dragon Mantle, it's pretty easy keep.
Yep.
All right, so Daniel cracks a Wooded Foothills to get things going.
Elvish
Does he have
Mystic
an
to
elf?
follow.
Yeah,
I mean,
there it is.
Pretty much has to if he's cracking Foothills on turn 1.
Yep, and he does have an elf, so we are underway. Ulanov. I saw he had a Fire Drinker Satyr in his hand, though that doesn't match up very well with the Elvish Mystic, so he might want to play something else. Maybe if he's got a Monastery Swiftspear, he can start getting a little damage going.
Looks like he's got a pair of Fire Drinkers, actually.
Not the best news in the world. But there it is. Fire Drinker Satyr passes his turn back to Daniel Scheid. All right, so here's the first of what will be 2 to 3 turns in a row that are going to be really important for Daniel to make sure that he keeps hitting his land, committing to the board. Ooh, does not hit his land, but he does get to play something here.
And Fire Drinker marches right past the Sylvan Caryatid.
Can't really block it. He can jump in front and trade, basically a turn for a card there. Ooh,
Oh,
geez,
boy.
that's huge. Searing Blood to take down Elvish Mystic and
Versus
drop
the guy who
Daniel
missed a
Scheid
land
down
drop.
to 14. But he hit his land, and it's a Courser.
Oh, that was a big draw.
And he's found another reasonable card on top there, but wow. Hitting that land was huge.
Yeah, that was really good for Daniel because, Dennis just drew a Goblin Ravelmaster. Playing a Ravelmaster against a board of Caryatid Forest would have been really tough to beat.
Yeah, game's over if he doesn't draw that forest that turn.
Playing a Ravelmaster against a Courser of Krufix is much less effective. Dennis can't even attack with this Fire Drinker. He could try to bluff a Titan Strength, but that's just a trade. It's not even extra value.
Right.
I guess he could play, if he has a third land, he could play it and attack with the Fire Drinker and bluff Coordinated Assault plus Pump, but that's a little thin.
I don't think he has the land anyway.
We'll see.
Can't quite see from here, but...
I think it's in between the Rabble Master and the...
Ah, okay. Yeah, I see where you're looking. There it is. All right. So he has that, but is he going to go for this elaborate bluff just to hope that he doesn't get called?
The problem with that is he's kind of likely to side out Coordinated Assault in this matchup. And if he has sided out Coordinated Assault, then this bluff gets so much worse, because if Daniel thinks that, he's like, well, you probably sided that out, I'm just going to block, and then you just threw away a creature and took 2 damage to add insult to injury.
Well, that's how you do it. You play 3/1 drops and just pass a turn back. Is there a land on top?
Is it a mountain? Can he cast Anger of the Gods?
It is a mountain. Oh, man.
He has Lightning Strike. It does not look like he has Anger of the Gods,
Okay.
though. So now Daniel's in the tank here, because he has a second Courser. If he plays the second Courser, plays the mountain, gains 2, he basically sets himself up for the next turn, but is resigned to taking a bit of damage this turn.
Okay. Plays the second Courser. Plays the mountain.
Goes up to 16. What's on top? Another mountain.
Stream of lands. If both players just draw lands, I think Daniel's going to win.
Right.
Thanks.
Dennis is in a pretty tough spot because he doesn't have any of the cards that his deck plays to make blocking more difficult. It doesn't look like he has any hammer hands. It doesn't look like he has any coordinated assaults, or, you know, he's got the Frenzied Goblin, so he can eliminate one of the coursers, but that still leaves a courser eating one of his creatures.
Yeah.
He does do a decent amount of damage. Let's say he plays Rabble Master, puts a token into play, makes a courser unable to block, attacks with everything. Daniel could then block Frenzied Goblin and take 6 going to 10, or he can block one of the Fire Drinkers and go to 11. But then untap with 5 mana, 3 blockers, at least 1 Lightning Strike in his hand.
And gaining a couple of life.
What
as
else
well.
is Dennis supposed to do, though?
I don't think he is. I think he's supposed to go for it.
Yeah, I do too.
This is what you signed up for when you entered the tournament.
Agreed. In fact, is he out of cards? He's hellbent now?
He is.
Yes.
Yeah. Turn
He
him
played
sideways.
4 cards that last turn.
And in they go. Courser can't block, and he has done that
I think
exactly.
you want to eat the Frenzied Goblin.
I feel like that too.
That is generally the case in situations like this. Lightning Strike, you want to point at the Rabble Master next turn, so you want to be able to block Frenzied Goblin, Lightning Strike Rabble Master. You're facing down 4 attackers with 3 blockers, so you're actually in really good shape here.
Does take 6.
So he goes down to 10, but he draws a land for the turn. He finds Anger of the Gods on
Oh,
top.
jeez.
Well,
So now his plan is
gotta
very clear.
survive one more
one turn.
and I think he's going to be able to.
Yeah,
I think
sure
so
looks like
too.
it.
He's back up to 12. And remember, his opponent
life
is
for
top
playing
decking.
land.
Now, is it greedy here, Luis, to let the Rabble Master live, or is that pretty standard play?
It's not so much greedy as incorrect.
Okay.
Just because you're going to anger everything anyway. I think you should just Lightning Strike the Rabble Master just to make sure things don't get out of control.
Okay.
I mean, Daniel wants to make sure he doesn't lose to a top deck Harness by Force. I think he's just going with a Lightning Strike here.
Playing it safe. I like it.
He could do it at instant speed too. It doesn't. There's not a whole lot Dennis could draw that could change anything here. But doing something like playing a Storm Breath Dragon, that would be pretty excessive. Then a top deck Harness by Force just ends you. Whereas playing Sylvan Caryatid, Lightning Striking the Rabble Master, you have a lot of blockers. You're throwing away Sylvan Caryatid if you do that. But you know, the exchanges, you get an extra blocker. I actually agree with his play of not playing it, just because you're going to anger next turn and you're at 12 against an opponent with no cards in hand. You're currently not taking any damage except 1 from an attack. Those Fire Drink Crusaders are going to hit Dennis for 6.
Ow.
So Daniel Scheid with maybe the tournament sitting on top of his library there. Anger of the Gods. I cannot see how Dennis could ever recover from that.
It's going to be difficult. Daniel can actually block Courser on both the Fire Drinkers, and if Dennis wants to, you know, spend 4 to trade for a Courser, that's not that bad. But it looks like he just wants to give up no value. He's just going to At this point, you do block a fire drinker, though. Your Caryatid's going to go down.
Yeah, the Caryatid's going to die.
Starting to anger anyway. If Dennis is willing to pump, that's just awesome.
All right, it looks like he's like, wait. Let's bring that back. All right, so he actually did in the end decide to block there. He has not blocked with the Caryatid, though.
That's surprising.
It is surprising.
Well, depending on what Dennis does, you might not even have to cast Anger here.
Oh, that is interesting. So the Fire Drinker Satyr is going to trade.
Dennis takes 4, Daniel takes 2.
Dennis takes even an additional 2 off using the Satyr.
And he takes an additional 2 off using the Satyr.
He takes a total of 6.
So the threat of that Anger of the Gods just forced him
live?
into that.
Yeah, there you go.
They figured it out. Daniel's like, that's why I did that. So now Anger of the Gods, actually not really necessary.
Yeah, it was the threat of it, right?
Yeah.
It forced Dennis into a bad attack, yeah. Looks like he's going to...
I mean, I think casting is actually reasonable, because you're trading a Caryatid and an Anger for 2 1/1s, which it just makes it a little less likely that you die to some crazy sequence of cards. But just having it in your hand is also pretty nice. The problem is, Daniel, I think he already had a Storm Breath in his hand or an Ash Cloud Phoenix, so if he plays one of those cards and then gets harnessed by Force, he could end up in a spot where he doesn't, he ends up just taking too much incidental damage.
He's going to go for Storm Breath here. And he's just actually going to pass the turn back.
My 4/4 flyer, my 2/4, stay away in fear from your 2 1/1s.
Would you have attacked there, Luis?
I might have sent in just a Storm Breath.
Yeah.
Now we're looking pretty good.
Now we're in the clear here. He has another Storm Breath ready to go. There's
Crater's
another
Claws.
finisher with Crater's Claws.
Let's see, what happens if you just attack for 4 and pass the turn? You don't play the second, or I guess you could play the second Storm Breath. You get stoked end of turn, untap, harnessed, and you still don't die. I mean, you have to play around all these bizarre situations, but I think you're in still pretty good shape here. You could even just play second Storm Breath attack for 8, but I don't think you need to, because this is already lethal with the Crater's Claws next turn.
Right. Daniel Scheid's at 13 life. And he's going to not even crack his foothills here. Wouldn't cost him any life to do so.
And that should be it.
And Denis Ulanov has passed the turn back, and this should be it. There's more on top of his library, but he can hit for 8 and then fire off Crater's Claws for even just 2, and that would do it. Denis Ulanov, he could stoke the flames one of the dragons, but that's certainly not a winning scenario, and he knows it's coming. Target you, and that's it. Daniel Scheid is our winner. He is a local. He's got quite a cheering section over there, too.
He does. All the people he beat in FNMs.
Yes.
Or the ones that beat him
in the finals.
Yeah, they're all rooting for him. So that's going to do it. We have a winner, and it's Green Red Monsters of all things.
Yeah, impressive.
Let's take a look at our bracket just so you guys can see. Daniel Scheid, our winner here. 4 Obzon decks in the top 8. None of them made it to the finals, and Green Red Monsters rules the day here in Los Angeles. All right, so we're going to kick you guys out.
Alrighty.
I thank you, gentlemen, for your service this weekend. You guys are awesome in the booth. I am going to have a quick chat with Daniel before we sign off for the tournament. But again, thanks for the great commentary all weekend.
Well, as always, I enjoyed it.
See you in a couple weeks in Nashville.
Yep.